Hello and welcome or welcome back if you are new here. My name is Jen. Thanks so much for being here. Today I wanted to do a video and talk about marathons, specifically for those of you that have never done one before, or you're watching this and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do one. That's the category of people that I want to talk to today, because I totally used to be one of those people. I've always hated running. In elementary school, I would dread the mile run. I'd be like the slowest in the class, and there'd be boys that would finish in like 6 minutes and I took 12 minutes. But today, I would kill for a 12-minute mile, but and it just was never really my thing, wasn't enjoyable. I'm asthmatic, struggled a little bit, being a little bit overweight most of my life. So running was just not my thing. I'm not even sure how I got into it. I know, so in our area, there's a pretty popular half marathon. It's called the Presque Isle Half Marathon. It's in Erie, Pennsylvania. Not a super, like when you think of big city, huge races, a little bit smaller than that. But Presque Isle is, I went to college up around there. So it was a place that we had always visited frequently. It was somewhere that I was familiar with. It was very nice and scenic. And it's a 13-mile loop around the peninsula. So very, very nice. 2014 was the very first half marathon that I did. And I think I just wanted to do something. I think I was just in that mood that I really wanted to prove myself, kind of thing. And I'm like, why can't I run 13 miles? I don't even remember really training for it. Didn't know what I was doing. But did it anyway. So I guess half marathons never really scared me. If you really think about it, like if you had to walk 13 miles to save your life, could you do it? Like, sure. So I certainly wasn't the fastest, definitely way in the back, but I finished, and it was such a huge accomplishment for me. I would recommend putting a little bit more training into it than what I did. So here is my first medal for my first half marathon. And like I said, it's not like a huge city, so you'll see when we get to some of the larger cities, their half marathon medals are like huge. But this was meaningful to me because it was my first one. Like, there's 2014. 2015, I did not start off that year thinking, this is the year I'm gonna run a marathon. In my mind, something completely out of the realm of possibility, the dumbest thing anyone would ever want to do. No, thank you. And then I met Bridget. Bridget, this is all your fault here. So I was at, it was a triathlon. It was, I should specify, a mini triathlon, which was also a very bad idea for me. So you would swim, maybe it was a quarter of a mile, it was in the lake. You would bike ride 7 miles, and then you ran 3 miles. I used to be a lifeguard. I'm an excellent swimmer, but I am terrified of water that you can't see the bottom. Like, I just think something's gonna eat me, something's gonna touch my foot. So this quarter-mile swim, and it's just people. It's not a very comfortable swim. There's just people like on top of each other, and I'm like hyperventilating because I'm thinking like the sea monster is gonna reach up and get my leg, and whoo, so I get through that quarter mile pretty quick, and then you change real quick, or and put the shoes on to hop on your bike. So I do that. I get on the bike, barely get like around the corner. I just feel like I'm gonna throw up. I'm just like, oh, this was a horrible idea. But anyway, it was at that event. A woman comes up behind me. And she's like, excuse me, she's like, do you go to so-and-so church? And I said, yeah. So here, it's a pretty big church, but I was on the worship team, so she recognized me, but I didn't recognize her. So she introduced herself, and so that was 2015. Here we are 6 years later. Still an amazing friend. That was our introduction that day. It must have been like soon thereafter, maybe like the very next weekend. I was signed up for the Erie, again, the Presque Isle half marathon. So I go, and who do I see but Bridget? I'm like, hey, how's it going? So that was pretty cool and exciting to have like this, friend in the running world. When I think of runners, I think of like somebody very serious, hardcore, disciplined, and she was just so funny and outgoing and hilarious. So anyway, we became good friends, and so soon thereafter that, oh sorry, here is the medal from 2015, the half marathon there. So so we were Facebook friends at that point, and I see that she has signed up for the Columbus Marathon later that year in 2015. And I'm like, what? Because she runs like the same pace that I do, like 15-minute miles. Like, I'm so slow. And then maybe she's a little bit faster than that, but I mean, not, that was our pace. And I was like, how is she going to do a marathon? Like, if she can do it, maybe I can do it, kind of thing. So I asked her kind of what she thought, and that was a horrible idea, because of course she's like, yes, you need to sign up. Like, let's do this. Oh, so I signed up. And I knew nothing about what I was getting myself into. And I actually got a little scared, because as I started to do research, the Columbus Marathon, and a lot of other marathons, they put a time limit on, and rightfully so. In some of these bigger cities, they need to be on a, kind of a strict schedule as far as when they start to open up the streets again and whatnot. So the Columbus Marathon, it was a 6-hour time limit, which equates to a 13-minute and 44-second minute 13 minutes 44 seconds per mile, so just under like 14-minute miles. So there's a 6-hour cutoff, meaning if you come across the halfway point and it is past 3 hours, like if you don't make it past the halfway in under 3 hours, they're gonna have you veer off to cross that finish line at the half and not even allow you to do the full, because if it took you more than 3 hours to do the first half, more than likely, you're not going to finish the full in time. So I was terrified. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to train to try to make sure that I can make it within that cutoff. If you have never looked for any kind of like marathon training before, I can tell you the one that I followed and that I would follow again in a heartbeat. And I think his program is pretty popular, but the name is Hal Higdon. Hal, H-A-L, Higdon, H-I-G-D-O-N. I have it up here on my computer. So the Hal Higdon and his training programs. So for training for a marathon, he has here an 18-week training program, also a half marathon training program, which would have been very helpful as well. But I followed his program for the full marathon. So what I really like about this is it's not like super intense every day of the week. What he has you do, so on the schedule here I'm looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're running. So Monday you're off, Friday you're off, it's a rest day. Saturday is your long run. So only one day a week are you doing a longer run. So for the first week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're running 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles. No big deal. And then Saturday, 6 miles. So, even if, like, I'll tell you right now, I'm kind of back out of shape. I haven't been running in a while and I really need to get back into it. And if I went outside right now, I could not run half a mile without stopping to walk. So even if you know, week one it says, okay, you're gonna run 3 miles today, and 3 miles seems intimidating, it's okay. I had to keep telling myself, because I was so discouraged and I was so slow and so out of shape. I just had to keep telling myself, just keep showing up. It didn't matter how long it took me to do those 3 miles. And I'm telling you, like, it doesn't matter how long it takes you. Just put in the work. So if you're supposed to do 3 miles a day, just get out there and do your 3 miles. You know, run what you can, stop to walk when you need to, you know, just show up. And this program, like, it magically worked. And, you know, I wasn't trying to be too intense about, like, okay, well, I'm gonna, because they call them intervals, where you're like, you know, we're gonna sprint for 2 minutes and walk for 30 seconds and sprint for, no, it was, I wouldn't even call it run, I would jog at a comfortable pace, you know, as long as I was comfortable, and if I needed to stop to walk, I would, and just did whatever I needed to just get those miles in. So week 2, 3 miles, 3, Saturday, 7 miles, so it ups it a little bit. Then the next week, it's 3 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles, and then Saturday's 5 miles. So it kind of like starts to change up a little bit. And then so things, you know, for the 3 runs in the middle of the week, you know, doesn't get too crazy, but that one, the Saturday run, each week your long run gets a little bit longer, keeps increasing and stuff like that. But I highly recommend, look up his training program. You know, there's a chart there. I think I even had like an app that I was following, but I'll tell you, like, it was like magic. Like halfway through this program, and like I said, starting, I couldn't even run a half a mile, and I was out running, you know, 6 miles without stopping to walk, and to me that is like freaking incredible. Oh, and even now I'm like, oh, I wish I was back to that. And I was in such good shape. I will say, like, I could like eat whatever I wanted, but, and like my weight stayed like at a really good place. And then when I stopped running, my eating habits didn't change, so that didn't work out well for me. So anyway, back to Columbus Marathon. So Columbus Marathon was a pretty big deal because it's in a big town. Those tend to be, you know, they're expensive. It's gonna cost like $120 some just to register. Once you start tacking in like a hotel room and things like that, like, it can be an expensive event. So Columbus was scheduled for October. There was an Erie marathon scheduled for September, like a month before the Columbus one. And the one in Erie was the same location that the Presque Isle half marathon was. Remember I said there's that 13-mile loop, that's the peninsula. So for the marathon, you do that loop twice. And again, since it's a much smaller, you know, venue, not nearly as large, like crowd-wise, as Columbus was going to be, I was like, maybe that'll be like a really good like trial run for me. And it was cheaper as well. So I signed up for the Erie Marathon as well. And I think at this point I was having a lot of doubts about the Columbus Marathon. I was like, can I do it? So I went ahead, and my very first full marathon was the Erie Marathon 2015. So, oh, I will tell you, I was definitely one of the last to finish, which I kind of expected. And I don't know that they like had a specified time limit, but you know, after about 6 hours, they're like, you know, trying to close up shop. So I finished this one in, I think it was like 6 hours, 45 minutes. So, but I was so proud of myself for finishing. And also I knew I didn't push myself as hard as I probably could have, because when I went into that day, like, failure was not an option. Like, I wanted so badly to cross that finish line, and I didn't want to give up. So I was almost afraid to go any faster or push any harder, you know, in the beginning, for fear of I'm not going to make it the whole way. So now I knew that I could finish it, and I probably could have given a little bit more. So that being said, I went ahead with the Columbus Marathon, which, like I said, my friend Bridget was also signed up for, and some of her other running friends, which I had gotten to know, they accepted me into their running group. So the marathons in the bigger towns, it's such a different experience, but such an amazing experience. You know, I hate like city traffic. I can't drive through big cities. But having the streets closed and being able to like run through these big cities, like, it's just an amazing, amazing experience. And I always thought that like I had mentioned before, like, that all runners must be like super serious, and it just wouldn't be my crowd, and that's the furthest from the truth. But I will say, though, there's a saying that marathons are like mullets, like the parties in the back. That is absolutely true. I do think it's a little more playful towards the back. When we were in getting ready at the starting line for the Pittsburgh Marathon, there was these 3 guys in wedding dresses, and they were gonna run. Maybe only the half, but they were gonna run in these wedding gowns. You see different people in like costumes and like fun stuff. You know, they're obviously not the ones in the very front being like, okay, we're gonna get our best time ever. So I like that crowd in the back. So Columbus, I gotta tell you about Columbus. So one of Bridget's other friends, and I don't think I had even like met her until that day, but she was with, you know, our group. So her and I, you know, it wasn't planned. It wasn't planned that we were going to run together or anything, but it just happened that we did. Now, at these larger races, a lot of times they will have what is called a pacer, meaning a person that will, usually they'll be holding up a sign saying, like, for instance, the one in the back here. So this pacer, they're a runner, and their sign said 6 hours. So if you wanted to finish the race in 6 hours, which was the time limit, so she would have been the pacer in the very back. There's pacers all throughout the line. There'd be one for like, you know, 5 hours. If you want to finish the race in 5 hours, this is the person you want to be running near or next to, and they'll keep that pace. And if you're running alone, like, that's an awesome way to just kind of get in with a group there and like run with people, make some friends. So me and this other woman, we were, you know, near where the 6 hour pacer was. We're like, okay, well, we'll stay with them. So we started running, and our pace was actually a little bit quicker. So we're like, all right, well, our goal is to stay in front of that pacer. And I think they had some kind of costume on. I want to say maybe it was a penguin. I'll have to look back through my pictures and see. But I don't know. But that was just the thing, like, stay in front of the penguin, so that we knew, okay, if we stay in front of them, we will finish before 6 hours. So we're running, not very fast, just, you know, decent pace. And I think it really helped. Like, if I would have been running by myself, I certainly would have stopped to walk. Probably soon. Like, but we were going at an okay pace and felt good. And, you know, I had trained, followed the training and did the miles. I put my time in. So, I think there was kind of that element of running with this other person, and I didn't want to stop to walk. I mean, if she would have wanted to stop to walk, I would have been like, whew, okay, but I didn't want to be the one to be like, hey, can we stop and walk? And also there was that pressure that I needed to cross that halfway point before 3 hours. And I should mention my half marathons in previous years, I think my times would have been kind of like the 3 hour, 15-minute time frame. So we kind of had that added pressure of like, we need to cross the halfway point before 3 hours. So it also meant like, we are not stopping to pee before the halfway point because we just didn't want to risk being that close, you know, time wise. And let me tell you something that I see at every race that's in a big city. You get to the first porta potty like 2 miles into the race, and there is a line like 50 people long. I'm like, we're 2 miles in. What are you doing? Like, I just don't get it. There's always, you know, a ton of bathrooms right at the start of the race. And that just, to me, that just wastes like so much time. And I know it might be nerves, and you know, if you drink a ton of water, I get it. But if you can avoid it, like, you don't want to wait in those super long lines, like just 2 miles in. So we're like, we are not using the bathroom until we pass that halfway point. It turns out we did not stop to walk until after we had passed the halfway point. And I was so proud of myself. Like, I ran 13 miles without stopping to walk. Haven't done that since. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it again. But crossed that halfway point in 2 hours and 37 minutes, which is world record for me. I mean, so I was so stinking proud of that. So we made it past the halfway point, and then we're like, okay, now we can pee. You know, that pressure's off. So we're still, you know, trucking along, looking for a bathroom, and wouldn't you know it, like, we can't find a porta potty now. So, you know, with these races, you can sign up for either the half marathon or the full marathon. Like, they're run at the same time. So you might have, I'm just making up numbers, but you might have twice as many runners running that half. But then once the half is done, you have, you know, half of those people are done, and it's only, you know, a smaller number of people continuing on. So we get past that 13-mile part, and there's like no bathrooms in sight. So we're like starting to panic. And it wasn't until like, I think mile 15 or 16. And we're still in front of the Penguin. So we're like, we're good. We're feeling great. So we see the bathrooms, and we stop. I'll never forget. I'm coming out of the porta potty, and as I swing open the door, the Penguin is running past. I'm like, no, because we had worked so hard to stay in front of it. So yeah, I think it's kind of went downhill from there. But no, so we kept going. I was starting to lose some steam, and the other woman I was with, you know, was able to keep a little bit more quicker pace. So I told her, I'm like, you go on, it's fine. So I kept going. And around mile 23, I'll never forget, like, I came around this corner, and it kind of dipped down a little bit. And there was like this bridge, and you kind of went under, this kind of road went under this covered part. And there was this woman like sitting on the curb, and she was just in tears, and she had her phone, I think she was texting somebody. And you know, when you're at 23 miles of a marathon, like, you have got to finish. So I sat down next to her, and I'm not always like a people person, but I'm just like, I sat down next to her, and I was like, I'll walk with you. And I said, we can sit here as long as you need to take a break. I'm gonna tear up. I said, we can sit here as long as you want, and I'll sit here with you. And I said, when you're ready, we'll get up and we'll walk. I said, you're gonna finish this. And so she was texting her husband and her 2 boys were at the finish line waiting for her. And, sorry. You know, I don't remember her name or her exact story, but, you know, there had been some major health issues within, you know, recent years kind of things. And I don't know, I mean, she had a story. And so we sat there for a little bit, and finally, you know, she was able to get up. Because I think she was texting her husband that she wasn't sure if she could finish or not. And so she let him know. She's like, okay, we're, you know, back up and moving, and someone's walking with me kind of thing. And I got to see her husband and her 2 boys were waiting for her on the side there. And she went over and gave him a hug, and I snapped a quick picture of it. I don't know, I'll have to look back and see if I still have that. Oh, it was just such a beautiful moment. But I will tell you, like, if you ever have a friend that runs a marathon, or you ever have a chance to just be a spectator at the finish line, oh my gosh, you will cry like 30 times in an hour. Like, it is just so emotional in a good way. You'll see firefighters in full gear, you know, crossing the finish line, police officers in, you know, their full gear crossing the finish line. I mean, it's just an incredible experience to see people just crossing that line that never thought that they would. Just the emotion on their face, like, oh, it's so good. Oh, okay, so here is the medal for the Columbus Marathon. It says 26.2 determined. And so remember how I was saying that the time limit is 6 hours? So I had my time engraved on the back here. If you can see that, 5 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. I made it by 2 seconds. And this medal here, I am the most proud of this one because, like, I know that I trained so hard. I put in the work, and I did it. Like, and I came in under the acceptable time limit. And I couldn't be any more proud than that one right there. So then in 2016, this was probably in this was May of 2016, I wanted to do the Pittsburgh Marathon. Well, now that I already had 2 marathons under my belt, and so Columbus was in October of 2015, and then through May, I kind of got lazy and a little bit cocky, and I was like, I don't want to train again. Like, training was so hard. Like, it does take a lot of commitment and discipline. No doubt about that. So I got lazy, and I was like, I don't really want to train that much for this. I can do it. It's all, you know, it's in your head. No, it's not. So I did finish. Here is the medal for that one, Pittsburgh Marathon. And my time for this one, and I will say this one also had a time limit of 6 hours. And this one, you can see, 7 hours, 3 minutes, and 40 seconds. Ouch. Okay, so that was bad. When I got about mile, might have been 22 on this one, you know, there's like no one in sight. Like, I'm just the only one still running this race, or I don't know. So a police car actually pulls up next to me, and he's like, are you still in this? And I was like, can I be? Like, I didn't know if he was gonna cut me off and be like, look, sorry, we're done. Like, and he's like, yeah. He's like, but you're gonna have to move to the side of the road or on the sidewalks, because they need to reopen the streets. So I did. And like I said, I mean, there's no more like race crowd. It's just like me out on the streets for a stroll. um, and I'm getting towards the end, and I know the finish line's like around here somewhere, but like I was kind of lost, like downtown Pittsburgh. I'm like, am I still going the right way? Oh man. And I was texting my husband. He's trying to like guide me to where I needed to be, and he met me at the end. And I have a really awesome picture of me, you know, coming around the corner. But you can see in this picture, you know, they've already torn down the finish line, like everything. They're piling things into the trucks, like. So I get there, but one of the people that worked with the race, you know, she had a medal there for me, but I mean, there's no like finish line anywhere. It's just, you know, she gave me my medal, but I finished, so yay. So that was 2016. 2017, I did the Presque Isle half marathon again. Something happened and they didn't get like official medals, but someone had actually made these for us, so that was nice. We can have that. 2017 Pittsburgh half marathon. So I'll show you, like, this is the difference in the sizes. So this was a full marathon from the year before, and this is the half marathon. So with Pittsburgh, usually like the medals will be like the same, but just different. I mean, this full one, this is, you can knock somebody out with that. Like, it's impressive. So I didn't have a time engraved on mine, because I'm sure it wasn't anything to be like super proud of. But my husband ran this one as well, half marathon. So he had his time engraved on the back, 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 29 seconds. So that is awesome for him. He did a really great job. And then we had done, so Pittsburgh had a fun, if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins, they have a 6.6K run. You know, it's very much so like Pittsburgh Penguins themed. Okay, a few more to talk about, but I'm gonna cut here in the middle, just to share things I learned that I didn't know in the beginning, especially in the bigger city races. Like, bring a throwaway shirt, meaning it's gonna be chilly first thing in the morning. Like, usually it's like super early when you're gonna be at that starting line, and you don't want to be there freezing, but you also don't want to be bundled up and then have all this clothing when you're running the race. So people will bring a throwaway shirt, like an old long sleeve flannel. I've seen people with a bathrobe, you know, over them to keep warm. And then right before the race starts, people will throw them away, or, you know, they'll lay them on the side. And all those clothing are usually actually collected and donated. So that's a very common thing to do. Second thing I want to talk about is shoes. I never knew anything about running shoes or the proper shoes or whatnot. But I would highly recommend going to a running store and allowing them to properly fit you for a shoe. So I learned in my 30s that I have worn like the wrong size shoe my entire life. And I also learned that so I was having an issue. Like, I would go to run like a half marathon, and I would get to mile 4 and like my foot would feel like it was asleep. I'm like, what the heck? I would, you know, loosen my laces. I had no idea what was going on. Well, here to find, and I had no idea, when you run, your feet like swell and get bigger. So I didn't have the right size shoes. So that was highly helpful, just to figure all that out. The next thing, you will see people run with all kinds of things as far as, and the whole spectrum. People will have nothing. People will have like waistbands that have like 4 different bottles of water, you know, that they're carrying with them. I'll show you what I have found and what I have loved. My husband has one of these as well, so we both really like these. There's this thing called a flip belt. So it is, you know, kind of stretchy, and it just goes around your waist. Very simple. So usually it's like right all over, you know, my waist, along the waistband there of, you know, my shorts. My shirt, you know, covers it, so it's not really seen. And it has just these little slits, you know, so I can run my hand from one to the other. But you can fit, I fit my cell phone in there before. Here, I actually have in the back here, there's my inhaler. So when I'm running with this, my inhaler will be in there. For long races, I recommend some tissues. And that's something that you wouldn't necessarily think of. But lo and behold, like, I always get a runny nose when I'm running these little races on it. But like, I wish I had a tissue. And you know, you're running, so you don't have sleeves to like do that. That's why you end up with people who like the snot rockets. Like, okay, so flip belt. I have my inhaler with me. I do like to have my phone with headphones to play music. This stuff is really good to have, called Body Glide, and I don't necessarily carry this with me while I'm running, but it's for anti-chafing. I usually try to have shorts that are not like super long, but like a little bit longer, so that my thighs aren't rubbing up against each other, because 26 miles of that, ooh, you're gonna be hurting. And then, so one other thing that I was never really familiar with until I started running these races. So they have these energy gels. Okay, so this is what these look like. Pretty popular in the running community. This one's vanilla bean. And I don't know if it's a texture thing or not, but I can't do the gels. But what they do have, and I love these, I could eat these like candy, these are energy chews. So, I mean, it's the same brand, and my favorite ones are watermelon. They do have different flavors. But, so these expired like 3 years ago. I think I had them in my running bag somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and open these and show you what they look like. I'm not going to eat them. But it says here, GU Energy Chews when training and racing. Each great tasting 160 calorie packet is packed with carbohydrates to keep you fueled, electrolytes to aid in hydration, and amino acids to reduce mental fatigue and decrease muscle damage. And I love, in this packaging, these fit very perfectly into the flip belt. And can't even tell that they're there. So on long races, I would always take these with me, and they are, equivalent, like you would think they're just like kind of gummy bear things. So we open up this, and there are, oh yeah, I don't trust that. Definitely expired. Oh, okay, so, but that's what it looks like. And it's like a gummy chew. And I really appreciate like having those during a long race. So now back to our races. So the next one we have, so I did do the Pittsburgh Marathon again in 2018. My husband did the half marathon. So here you can see the difference. See, these are the same, but his is the half marathon, mine is the full. And he engraved his on the back. His time was 2 hours and 5 minutes and 54 seconds. And that is an amazing time. Like, so proud of him. He did so good. All right, so something I was excited about for this year, 2018, is they actually extended the time limit from 6 hours to 7 hours. And I love that because it kind of took the pressure off. And it really sucks, like, coming into the finish line and there's no finish line left. And I mean, that was my own fault that one year, because I did know the time limit was 6 hours and I was way over. So they extended the time limit to 7 hours, which I thought was amazing, because I think that really opens it up a little bit more to maybe those that are afraid to try it. By extending it to 7 hours, that means that your pace can be like a 15-minute mile. So that gives a little bit more leeway there. While I did appreciate the 7-hour time limit, I will say, again, maybe around mile 23 or something, I see this huge bus, like going at like a turtle pace, but like way in the distance behind me. And I'm like, oh crap, like, is that the bus where, you know, they're coming to sweep people up? You know, is that like the time limit crusher? I don't know what you want to call it. But I'm like, if that bus catches up to me, does that mean, you know, kind of game over? Oh, and again, that just put like a ton of pressure. And again, I hadn't trained as well as I had before, so I'm dying. But again, I knew I could finish, but it was just nerve-wracking having that bus behind me and, you know, slowly getting closer and closer and closer. And sure enough, eventually the bus did catch up to me and pass me. I wasn't made to get on it. So that was cool, awesome, you know, making my way to the finish line. And there wasn't very many people that I saw still. You know, I may have been like the last person to finish. But as I'm getting close to the end, I do see this man. And I'm like, oh good, somebody else. Well, so I kind of catch up to him and we're walking along, and this man is not in a very good mood. So he had, I don't know if he had pulled something or some kind of injury. You know, obviously he wanted to finish, but he was not finishing at the time that he had wanted to. So we get to the end and cross the finish line. Go Dan! And, you know, there's a race staff person there to give us our medals. And he's just like asking this person, he's like, I need my name taken off the list. He's like, I don't want my name showing up with the time, because the results are, you know, published on the website afterwards of, you know, the times that people finished. And he's like, I do not want my time to show, because he was so embarrassed at how long it took him. And I'm like, I'm proud of my time. Like, come on, buddy. And then what was funny is the year after, so 2019, I only did the half. But I think it was this year. I'm gonna have to look it up. The woman that came in last place made national headlines. Like, there was this huge emotional feel-good story, and rightfully so. I'm not trying to take away from her at all. Like, that's so awesome. I love it. You know, of her coming in at the very end after all these hours, and, you know, she did it. And meanwhile, I get to cross the line the year before with Mr. Grumpy Pants. Like, okay, I just jumped online to find that story that I was talking about the last place finishers at the Pittsburgh Marathon 2019. It says here, the story behind the final Pittsburgh marathoners crossing the finish hand in hand. Oh, and I love this. Look at that picture. Oh. So it says, Laura and Jessica were strangers before the race, but supporting each other to their shared goal brought them together. So awesome. So, and I remember this story because it says, in the midst of the widespread controversy over how slower participants at the April's London Marathon were treated, one magical photo is a reminder of how wonderful running can be when runners are supported, respected, and allowed to thrive. Oh, I love that so much. Yes, that is so important. It says Jessica and Laura came in 3,420th and 3,421st place of 3,422 finishers. I've been there. And they had times of 7 hours and 22 minutes and 7 hours and 24 minutes. The reason their time can be like a couple minutes off, even though they're crossing the finish line at the same time, is they didn't necessarily start at the same time. So like I said, they were strangers when they started. So depending on where they were at that starting line, even when they say like, okay, on your mark, get set, go, and everyone goes, your time does not officially start until your feet cross the starting line, and the chip will, start your clock. So it says they ran across the finish line together, 2 of 8 participants to miss the race's official 7-hour cutoff time. So 2019, I was there and did the half. I'm going to keep reading this because this is just so important. But unlike what hundreds of runners at the back of the pack, even with an official pacer, faced in London, all course amenities remained open for the entire duration of their race. So I guess in London, and like I talked about like how races will have pacers. So here's a group like running with an official pacer, and I guess like they were already tearing down, like there wasn't water stations, there wasn't anything for these people in the back, and like what a horrible experience. So it said, hours after many other runners had already finished and headed home, they had access to aid stations, split and finish timing mats, and course markers. It says the only negative was the constant presence of the sweet vehicle close behind them. Yes. That's so terrible, just to have like this vehicle kind of creeping behind you. Like, oh, I mean, you might as well just like write failure across the car. Like, so it says they had no idea of each other's existence before. And one of them said, looking back to check how near this race's sweet vehicle was to her around the 14-mile mark. Oh, the sweet vehicle was behind her at 14 miles. Oh, that's terrible. See, it was around me at like 23 miles. And like those last 3 miles were just like awful because of that. So it was behind her around 14 miles and she still had 12 miles to go. Oh. So once they'd established each was running the full marathon on their own, they pledged to stick together for the remaining miles. I'm gonna cry again. They pledged to stay together for the remaining miles. I have to become robotic or I'm not gonna get through this. If you stay with me, I'll stay with you, the two promised each other. Over the next 3+ hours, they took turns holding hands to keep each other on pace, reassuring each other, even video chatting with Robertson's mother and daughter for outside encouragement. When Robertson, who was running her first ever 26.2, faltered, Mazur, with her last names, drew on her 6 years of marathon experience to reassure her. You're fine, we're going to get through this. I've been through this before and I felt the same thing. You go through a plethora of emotions over 26.2 miles. Yes, you do. There is another fantastic photo of those two there. Mazur was horrified to learn of the abuse suffered by similarly paced runners in London, which reportedly include verbal insults from cleanup workers. Oh, that's awful. And chemical burns from cleaning spray. She hasn't experienced anything to that extreme, she said, but racing at the back of the pack hasn't always been the smoothest experience. At the 2017 Pittsburgh Marathon, Mazur said the cutoff time was 6 hours, but race officials tracked gun time, not chip time. Oh, meaning Mazur and other runners around her who finished the race in under 6 hours, but started nearly an hour after the first wave, lost aid stations, course markers, and timing mats. Yeah, those course markers are important. Because like I said, like I was getting lost towards the end. I didn't even know if I was still even on the right track. So it said the next year the race pushed the cutoff time back to 7 hours, but Missouri still saw officials packing up course amenities prematurely. This year she was expecting some difficulties, fewer aid stations, race officials asking her to give up something, but was blown away by the positives of last Sunday.
Runners of steel.
Oh yeah! Woo! You go! Oh yeah, runners of steel! You got it!
They have done it. They are just about
You guys are so
60 feet
amazing!
away from completing their goal. You guys every step of the way. Congratulations. Thank you so much for being an inspiration to all of us. For being a runner of steel.
I love this article and cannot speak highly enough about it. When you train and you put in the work, like, you want that same experience, and to feel like, you know, you get that close to the end and everything's shut down, you don't know what's going on, there's no water stations for you, like, it's really discouraging. So I just love this story so much, and I love the attention that it got. So I would love to see the continued, you know, extended, you know, time limits. If you're gonna shut down the whole town of Pittsburgh, what's an extra hour? Like, I'm so proud of these ladies for not giving up. And kudos to Pittsburgh. With all that being said, it can be hard going into a marathon knowing that you are going to be on like the slower end of things. So let me tell you about this race that I have found that I am so in love with. Like, if I ever run another race again, I guarantee you it will be this one. Like, I don't know if I'll ever sign up for a marathon, a full marathon again, just for the reasons that I explained. I know my limits, I know my pace, I know that it's not going to be that great, I know that I can finish, but I know there's been a lot of articles written about you know, people that do run a slower pace. Is their experience, you know, different? And very much so. You know, the crowds are gone by the time you get there, and it's just, it is very different, and it can be a little disheartening. And you know, you worked just as hard and you ran those same 26 miles, you know, someone else did. So when I found this other race, like, oh my goodness, I can't say enough good things about it. So this is located in Canal Fulton, Ohio, and it is called the Eagle Up Ultra. And I actually have the shirt on here. I'll show you. So this is the shirt I got. This was in 2018 that I did this race. So here is the Eagle Up Ultra. Really cool shirts. They get the flag on the arm, and you have sponsors on the back. So what I love about this, and when you hear the word ultra marathon, like, don't let that scare you off. I used to think that ultra marathon meant 100 miles, that's it. Well, this one, so you can do a couple different things. You can do, there is a 24-hour window. It's from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. And it's a 5-mile loop. So what you do is camping is included. So you're camping right there inside the park here. And there's a 5-mile loop. And you can choose to do a 50K, which is 31 miles, 50 miles, 100K, which would be 62 miles. You could do 50K plus 50 miles, which would be 80 some miles, or you could do 100 miles. So you have all those different options, and you have 24 hours to do it. So at the very minimum, a 50K is 31 miles. So I could show up, and I know when I don't really train for a marathon, I can do it in like 7 hours. You have 24 hours. And if you wanted to just do 31 miles of 50K, you can do that. So like, the pressure's off. And I went into this with a goal of 50 miles. And I'm like, if I can do 26 miles in 7 hours, certainly I can do 50 miles in 24 hours. Again, so it's on a 5-mile loop. So you never feel like you're in last place. You're never isolated. You never feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind everyone else. It is such a fun atmosphere. Our campsite was like right along where the loop we ran around, and we had a sign that said, because none of us had like super hardcore trained for this, so we were team wing it. And our sign said like, team wing it. When you wing something, you should definitely not be winging. Like, because we just showed up, we're like, yeah, we're gonna wing it. And we did. But it was just so fun, and they had, you know, a bunch of food, so you could do a 5-mile loop, take a break. You were allowed to, you could take as many breaks as you want, and you could come off the course, go to your campsite, eat some food. The only rule was you had to re-enter where you exited, you know, that part of the loop. So, it was so fun. I can't say enough good things about this one. I just, for me and my pace, like this was just my type of race, because it was just, it's such a fun atmosphere. Even if you are slower, just that pressure isn't there. So I ended up, I made it, so like I said, it's a 5-mile loop. I made it 35 miles, and I started, it was maybe like 10 o'clock at night. So from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night. And I mean, I had taken a bunch of breaks, eaten, you know, sat down and stuff. So, you know, we'd gotten the headlamps are out now that was provided with your race registration. So I start mile 35 to do the loop to get me to 40 miles. And I still have another like 8 hours to get in, you know, my miles to get to 50, but my body was starting to shut down. My body's like, I don't know what you think you're doing or where you think you're going, but we are done. So I had started that loop with the intention of making it the 5-mile loop around, but I only made it 1 mile out. I'm like, nope. Like, I just sat down, like I was crying, like I didn't have anything left. And I texted Bridget, and I was just like, I can't go anymore. And she texted back, she's like, I'm coming. So she comes to meet me, you know, we're walking back. So in total, I made it 37 miles. So my medal ended up being for 50K, which is 31 miles. Obviously, they're not gonna make medals for like every milestone. It was either 50K or 50 miles, and I didn't quite make it to the 50 miles, but so there is that medal there. And like I said, like I hope to start, I don't know that I'll ever like hardcore train again, but I definitely want to start running a little bit more again, get back into shape. And I would totally do the Eagle Up Ultra again in a heartbeat, like wouldn't even think twice about it. So fun. And those are my thoughts and recommendations. I mean, just keep running. Just keep running. What do? We run. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below and ask me. Again, I am not an expert, just a lot of experience in signing up for stuff and crossing a finish line. But I hope this was helpful. You know, if you're scared or you're thinking about trying it, by all means, like, go for it. So I wish you all the best, and thanks for joining me.